Welcome, Angelinos! We thank you for tuning in to yet another brilliant episode of the Galaxy Guy podcast, hosted by Chris Maldonado, a show made by loyal Galaxy fans for loyal Galaxy fans who bleed blue, white, and gold. So join us as we talk about the ins and outs, as well as the ups and downs of your favorite team, the one and only, the Los Angeles Galaxy.
Bienvenidos, Angelinos. Welcome back, Galaxy fans, to the Galaxy Guy podcast. Como siempre, as always, I'm your host, Chris Maldonado. And today we have the first game, the first post-game show of the season. And let me tell you, it's going to be a very, very good show today. First of all, let me just say I'm still very amped. I'm full of energy from that game earlier, despite having slept almost nothing last night. I was able to catch the game at the best viewing party location, which is Springbok Bar and Grill. A ton of passionate fans were out there. Shout out to all the raza out there in the 818. I lost my voice. I'm just starting to gain it back. I ate some lozenges. There was a lot of cheering, a lot of chanting, just really overall a fantastic and electric experience. I couldn't love it more. Got to meet a ton of you, got to interview many of you. It was phenomenal. What else can I say? I had a great time. Now, of course, the reason you're all here is the game, and we will be talking about the season opener versus our LA Galaxy and David Beckham's Inter Miami in Florida. We will be breaking down the game, talking about some highlight moments, breaking down the stats, and as always, we will be discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, to help me do all of that, I've got one of the most prolific members of the Galaxy fan community, a veteran of many, many keyboard battles on the LA Galaxy subreddit. I have the privilege of being able to discuss the Galaxy today with Mr. Matt Granger, aka Galaxy Fan 89. Matt, welcome to the show. I have to say, after today's game, I have to ask you, how are you doing?
You know what? I'm doing really, really well. I was super pumped going into the game. I think we had seen so many good things in the preseason. It's a big change for us naturally. We have a new coach, formerly Galaxy member. We have new players, and I think we just look so organized. So going into today's game, I was super pumped. For me and my family, our lives basically revolve around the Galaxy. You know, we go to every home game we have for the last 3 or 4 years. We go to at least 5 away games any time that work allows us to get away. So just having the Galaxy back in our lives again, you know, whether we were going to get a win today or whether we were going to lose, it was just good to have them back. They're almost like that best friend that kind of just like razzes on you a bit. Even when it's bad, sure. It's real good. And those are the good times. That's kind of how it is with the Galaxy. So I was really excited to have them back. I did sleep last night. I was able to sleep. Unlike you, Chris, I didn't get too stressed out, but it was good. It was good. We were very much looking forward to it. We had made carne asada. We had food ready. We had all the wines picked out. It was very, very cool.
That sounds like the perfect setup and scenario for a good Sunday Galaxy game at home. I got to say, that sounds fantastic, man. But before we get started with the show, I'd like to remind the listeners out there that the giveaway for the 2 tickets to the home opener between our LA Galaxy and the New York Red Bulls this upcoming weekend is still ongoing, and you can still enter that giveaway. The winner will be announced on Wednesday. Entry to the giveaway is easy and simple, and you get multiple entries. Entry method number 1, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's the Galaxy Guy podcast on YouTube. Entry method number 2, follow me on social media, Instagram or Twitter, and reshare my giveaway post. Simple as that. Entry method number 3, leave a comment and a like on this video on YouTube. And that's it. Simple as that. You'll have a chance to win the tickets. I know that the tickets are being resold out there. Some I've seen going as high as $200 each online. But I have just received so much love from the Galaxy community and the viewers. I figured that I'd give a little bit of love back. Now, besides, I'll most likely be watching the game up from the press box as a member of the media this season. So, I really have no need for the tickets. I'd rather just give them away. So, reminding the fans that that giveaway is still ongoing now, and you have until Wednesday, basically. So, best of luck to everyone. Now, Matt, let's really get into the meat of this sandwich. Matt, why don't you go ahead and get us started with a quick minute by minute summary of some of the highlights of the game? I know you took down some notes, so why don't you go ahead and get it started?
Sure. Well, I mean, like obviously we have the starting lineup, right? We had a very similar lineup to our last preseason game. We had Bond at goalie, backline Viafana, Depew, Steris, Fisher, Saldana, Dos Santos, Vasquez in the middle, Grancer, Leggett, maybe I was like wide middle, wide wings, and then Chicha up front. So something we've seen before, something that's been relatively successful. Truth be told, I was a little surprised. I don't know if you feel the same way to see Depew get the start in a regular season game. We hadn't really seen him so much during the preseason. What are your thoughts on that?
We saw a lot of Jalen Neal in the back line. I think Jalen Neal was actually the defender that got the most minutes in preseason. I was surprised that he didn't even travel with the team. As you know, Derek Williams didn't travel with the team either. He's still just coming back from injury. So I have to agree with you, Matt. I was definitely surprised that Nick Dupuis was, and I know I'm going to hear a lot from the French fans that listen to this show. They say you mispronounce that name every time you say it. Listen, I'm English as a second language, so I'll struggle with it for a long time, but I'll get it eventually. I agree. I was surprised to see him in the lineup, but as we know, he really did step up to the plate and he played a decent game. We'll talk about that. But go ahead, Matt. Please continue.
So the game starts off and already it's a yellow card. In typical MLS fashion, Chicha goes down and we've got a yellow card in. To me, it seemed a bit soft. I mean, I'm glad to take it, especially on a guy like Perez. But to me, it seemed a bit soft. But happy to have it. From there, the game kind of gets going a little bit. At least to me, it seemed like we were having trouble passing out the back a little bit. But then, like a sunlight from heaven, here comes Jonah Dos Santos with this beautiful dime pass to Chicha right up the middle. I mean, it's coming, it's looping, it comes right down, and then just kind of curls and stops. And as soon as I saw that thing hit the air, I thought, God help me, like he's about to score a goal. Like this is Chicha's moment. Yeah. There's just no other way. But I guess he forgot to like unhitch the trailer on that one. Because to me, it seemed like I thought he had angle. Yeah. I thought he had the advantage on the run, and I don't know. He just got a little bit outpaced there. Which, I mean, he hasn't been fast for a minute, and he is getting older. But it was a bit disappointing. I think. Just having seen Chicha's other games, we were really hoping that he would come out and strike one right off the get. So
right,
a little bit discouraged initially.
Mm-hmm. Some other highlights that you saw that first half, something that stood out to you?
In all honesty, the first half, I don't think we played like well at all. I really feel like a lot of it was that we looked a little bit lost out there.
I don't think you'll find a lot of fans that'll disagree with you on that. That first half was rough for the Galaxy.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to point out a bit of a highlight. So I'll just go with kind of the feel and what I saw. It felt like, I know at some point there was a stat had come out during halftime, at least during the broadcast, that said we had like something like 63 to 67% possession. Yeah. But I think if you're watching the game, or at least from my perspective, when I was watching the game, it kind of felt like we were just absorbing pressure. And maybe that's just the rhythm of the game. Even though we had possession, it just felt like we were just absorbing pressure. And because we were absorbing pressure, it just felt very, very familiar in that respect. I think with GBS, we kind of absorbed pressure, but we knew that the dynamic was like, okay, we're going to fly up the wings, right? We may have not had the wings or the wingbacks to do it, but that was kind of the mentality, like very much like I guess Inter Milan does this year.
Yeah.
But we absorbed the pressure, but there was no big counter.
Mhm.
It felt like we would absorb the pressure just to possess.
Just
And
to
then once
pass
we
around the ball laterally
exactly,
and backwards. And
exactly,
I
exactly.
listen. I was watching the game, and all the guys around me at the viewing party were saying the same thing out of frustration. They were like, "Pass the ball forward, do something with it," because the team really did, like you said, they were just absorbing pressure. They were playing the reactionary soccer, is what it's called, right? Um, and there really wasn't going much going forward. It was just a lot of lateral play, a lot of play on the wings. And I have to say, though, the wing play definitely has gotten better. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail. But yeah, the first half, man, you just hit the nail on the head. There's just really not a lot of highlights to talk about. So let's move on and let's talk about some highlights in that second half. There were obviously some goals in that second half for the LA Galaxy. You run us through that.
So I think the game kind of turns a little bit. Maybe when Grancer and Saldana come off. Um, I think part of the problem was that Saldana was having trouble with the physicality of the game. I think in the preseason he looked solid. He checked in. He looked involved. But in this game, maybe because it was just such a big game, it was ABC. Tom Brady's there. Um, the commissioner's there. Beckham's there. Everyone's watching. It was like a who's who of event that it kind of felt like at times he got a little bit overwhelmed. That's not to
Yeah.
say that like he didn't do anything well, right? Like because he had a couple of balls where he changed the field to to um to Fisher, and they were beautiful balls.
Oh
But
yeah. The kid definitely has a great long ball. He has a great long ball. A lot of potential with that kid, but at the end of the day, he's still a kid, and like you
yeah,
said, Matt, it's a big game, and that comes with experience, right? You step up to those
exactly.
big games when you have a little more experience, your nerves are a little more calm because you've been there, done that. Adam Saldana has his first real season as a pro, and I noticed that too. I definitely noticed that too. He wasn't bad. He wasn't terrible. Um, he was decent. He was decent.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and he was just and decent's a good way to put it. And I think once we pulled him out, it allowed the rest of the midfield to maybe flow more like professionally.
mhm,
I guess would be a way to put it because I felt like at times like Jonah is probably capable of doing more going
mhm,
forward, but because he knew he had Saldana with him, and Saldana was a little shocked, uh, he had to reserve his game a little bit. The
right.
second thing where the game kind of turns is when they take out Grandsir. Um, and I think Grandsir shows points, like when he brings down the ball, when he does a couple of flicks, that there's obviously talent there,
Mhm.
but he's just out of form right now, you know?
Yeah, and look, Samuel Grandsir was he didn't have a bad game. It wasn't terrible. He had moments of brilliance. He went 58 minutes because he's still not fully 90-minute game fit, right? And that's very noticeable. In his last preseason game, he played 25 minutes, so it's definitely a big improvement that he went over, you know, more than half of what he played last time. Um, he didn't do bad. His passing rate was great. He had a 92 passing success rate. He didn't have any shots on goal, which is unfortunate. I feel like he just wasn't really getting up to it. He was making a lot of runs on the wing, but he just wasn't entering the attack as much as I would have liked. He had 22 accurate passes. That was a pass success rate of 92% of accurate passes. 45 total touches, which is not bad for a winger. Um, had some duels won. He was dispossessed a couple times, which was kind of bad to see. I feel like he was maybe showboating a little bit, trying to
Yeah,
put on a show, but he's just not there yet. He's
yeah,
not at that physical fitness where he can attempt those things, but yet he did. So he did get dispossessed. I believed he was the guy that was dispossessed the most in the midfield. He had four times where he was dispossessed. Had three attempted dribbles. Only one of them was successful. So overall, it was kind of like he showed moments where it was reassuring, and And then he had moments where it was like, okay, listen, this guy needs a little bit more physical fitness, and he needs to just kind of chill a little bit on the showboating. So,
Yeah, he'll definitely make my good, bad, or ugly for sure. So I'll leave it at your statistics right there, and then I'll circle back to him after that.
and we'll get to that. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about the goals? We had three goals, obviously, in that second
Yes,
half.
yes. So
Run us through that first goal.
so Zubak comes in, and it just changed the dynamic of the game. And I had seen Zubak. Obviously, I think we had seen him play winger or at least something alongside Chicha during the preseason.
Sure.
And Zubak's going to be one of those guys who's very people either love him or hate him. More people hate him. It's kind of hard to love him, but I actually didn't think he actually did that bad at the wing. And I think it kind of shows here, right? Like I want to say Harvey's the one who hits him on that slick pass. It might have been Vasquez, maybe it was Harvey. He takes it out wide, and yeah, he just hits Chicha going near post. Chicha, to his credit, I guess all that running Canyon has really helped him out because he was a lot stronger when the center back went body to body on him, right? Like he comes in, chest hard on Chicha. Chicha just kind of gives him like that nice, like good, like soccer block, bounces off, creates enough space, and boom, right into the goal.
Oh yeah.
It was a great moment for the Galaxy. It was an even better moment for Chicha. I think it
That
was a
was
bit of a relief.
huge
Yes.
weight on his
Yes.
shoulders, an
Yes.
enormous weight on his shoulders, and I felt it, man. When the fans in that first half, the fans were just like, "Come on, Chicha, you're missing some chances, dude. Those heavy touches, those giveaways." There was a time when Chicha gave away the ball that led to a goal. So when he scored that goal, the fans were just like, okay, like that's what we want to see from Chicharito. And there was obviously the second goal, which was
Oh, and then of course the second goal. So I think in the big Chicha debates have always been like he's a poacher. He'll find himself to a great spot. You just need to give him the opportunities, right? And this is the first game where we actually kind of saw it. Once we had pulled out Grandsir and Saldana, we got to see, I guess a more progressive passing, where as opposed to just passing sideways and laterally, and then like maybe even in the first half we would pass it to Grandsir. I felt a couple times, almost like, okay, Pavone, go do something with it, right? Because we were just so in the habit of it.
right.
But once Grandsir came out, then our passing got more dynamic. It was a lot more 1-2s, and then sure enough, right, we get the ball to the wing, and Victor Vasquez, someone I had been super, super, super critical of.
Same.
Guilty. I did not think this guy was going to be nearly as effective. I always thought the mind was going to be there, a lot like Sasha, but I was just not convinced by the legs. This guy had red flags coming everywhere.
Right.
He puts in a cross, and here comes super sub Zubak again. Right, he goes up for the header. I'm not even sure if he connects on it. I'm gonna just say for his benefit that one of his curly hairs touches it, so he gets a shot on goal. I'm gonna give him that credit.
Yeah.
The goalie goes to try to stop it, cannot, and then there's Chicha ready to go, ready to poach, ready to take full advantage of the situation.
That was a classic Chicharito goal. That is vintage Chicharito. That is a poacher's goal. That is he got his toe in there, his fat toe, and he is able to get that in the back of the net. Super happy for him as a Galaxy fan. That's what I want to see. If all of Chicharito's goals are poacher's goals that are tap-ins, hey, you know what? I don't care as long as the guy's scoring goals. So definitely good.
I completely agree with you. I was actually talking to my father-in-law today. We were watching the game, and he's a lot more versed in soccer than I am. And he was saying that, like, when he used to coach, a lot of times strikers, they would get in their own head and then they would start thinking like, oh, I have to score pretty goal. I have to put in top ends. I have to score golazo. It has to be a pretty boy soccer. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter whether it goes off your face, your hip, or your foot. As long as it's going in the goal, they all count the same, right? And anyone who's seen Chicha's career has actually seen the ball go off his face and then in the goal. Still counted, still celebrated the same. Everyone's super happy. So couldn't be happier for him. I think the best part about seeing Chicha score, though, was like the amount of emotion that came out of him, right? It was a very cathartic moment for him. I think after the first goal, you could see almost crying. And then after the second goal, that the team just really rallied behind him.
Now, of course, you said something that kind of piqued me a little bit. You said you're happy with Ethan Subak being that super sub, right? I think Ethan Subak brought some life into that game, and you know what? If Greg Vanney decides to use Ethan Subak this season as a sort of super sub, um, I'm happy with that, right? Because I think Ethan Subak he has the skills, to succeed in MLS. Now, speaking of super subs, of course, Greg Vanney subs in Sasha Kljestan, right? I'm super, super happy if Sasha goes on to be that super sub as well for us because he did fantastic in the midfield in the time that he was in there. And he had himself a goal. He had himself a
Yes.
goal.
Yes, it was. It comes down the side. Here comes Fisher, dodging up the middle, and you can see when the camera angle changes, like he's got options, right? But
Mm-hmm.
he's going to play it to his DP striker. So he tries to play it to Chicha near post, ball deflects, and then here comes Leggett down the middle. Uh, Leggett's got a decision to make. He could either take it with his left, which that's his spot. To be perfectly frank, if he had taken the shot, no one would have blamed him. And Leggett on his day is our best player, in my opinion. I think in terms of the goals, the assists, what he contributes, he can be our best player on any given day. But he lays it off to good old Sasha, who just like scores the most Sasha Kleshkin goal like possible. Like Sasha, he's a very smart player. He's played all over the world. Great passer, great mindset, great leader. But he's slower now, right? He's like a little bit like slow, marauding.
He was never very
Um,
fast to begin with, but yeah, he's
exactly,
definitely lost a step.
exactly. Well, it's hard to tell. So, but he gets the ball and in true Sasha fashion, right? Like just clinical, technique driven. Didn't have to blast it. Just hits it with his left. Beautiful curl right off the post. Goalie's frozen in
Sure.
cement, and there you go. Right, we're up
Sure.
3-2.
That was beautiful to see, man. It was beautiful to see. Um, the goalkeeper just stood there, and for a split second, it didn't register in my mind. And then I saw the net move, and I was like, that was a goal. Everyone just started cheering around me,
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, I guess that was a goal. But yeah, it was phenomenal.
yeah. And then
Great,
and then
great
Dunbar
stuff.
almost got one. And then Dunbar almost got one right at the end. He almost put the nail in the coffin.
That would have been
Another great run by a
fantastic,
youngster.
man. I honestly, Matt, and I don't know if I'm alone on this, but it feels like it's been ages since the Galaxy won a season opener, right? I know it was probably like 2019, 2018, but it feels like it's been a decade. So it was definitely very exciting, very refreshing to not only get a win on our season opener, but to get a win on the road, which is enormous, and it's going to go a long way down the season if we can get some points on the road, right? The important stuff is to get points at home. As long as we can do that, and we can sneak in some points on the road, we're definitely making playoffs this season. Definitely making playoffs in a comfortable position, right? So now that we talked a little bit about some of the highlights, um, let's move on to a segment that I like to call the good, the bad, and the ugly. And unfortunately, I don't have Nate Dottie with us tonight to do a little sound effect, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but we'll skip that for today. What do you say, Matt? Should we talk about the good first?
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, starting off with the good, right? Some of the good things that I saw out there. Listen, I've been saying it all preseason. I'll say it again for this season opener. Jonathan Bond continues to be solid. Okay, now there were two goals scored against him. One of them was a penalty. That's almost impossible to stop for most goalkeepers. It's Gonzalo Higuain, right? Shooting that. Okay, so he had six total saves, three of which were big diving saves. Three of them were inside the box. There just seems to be a very calming presence with him back there at goal. I know I'm not alone when I say this, but I felt tremendous anxiety anytime Bingham had to make a big save. And I don't feel that with Bond. And so far, what I've seen from him, I can safely say, okay, that Jonathan Bond is the best goalkeeper the LA Galaxy's had since Jaime Pinedo. So I don't know if I'm stretching myself too much on that statement, but so far from what I've seen, I think that's true. Um, what did you think about Jonathan's Bond performance?
I agree with you. I think he should have the next statue.
Let's give the man a statue, right?
No, I thought he did very well. I think I think we and you had talked offline before that it's kind of silly that we had spent so much time, so many years, so many paragraphs on Reddit, arguing about whether David Bingham was a good or bad goalkeeper. And maybe the verdict's still out on there, but you're right. It's a lot less anxiety with Bond back there. I think with Bond back there, like he just does things that Bingham maybe didn't do, right? He has a lot more command of his defense. I feel like he's a little bit more vocal. He catches the ball, which is like really nice. He deflects it out. That's super cool. I don't know if like that's a big new thing now, but that's pretty good. But no, he's a tremendous goalkeeper. He's very decisive, and I think it's a phenomenal signing. I think if Klinsmann thought he was going to get some playing time, I think he's in some trouble, because I think this is our goalkeeper for whatever the extension of the contract is. He's going to have that on lock. And granted, it's early; things can obviously go sideways, but he has just shown so much potential. It's been night and day.
Oh yeah,
and I think
his distribution is great as well.
Distribution and the defense benefits from having a strong goalkeeper, right? You don't always have to feel like you have to save the keeper per se. He's going to have your back, and you're going to have his. So I think overall, a phenomenal signing.
Speaking of defenders and speaking of having to save, I was very impressed with Nick Dupuy. I was very impressed with Nick. I think he had a very big game. He really stepped up to the plate. He had some very, very key saves that were, if he hadn't saved them, they were most likely going to be goals, So aside from Jonathan Bond and Nick, I thought that the defense just in general played a pretty decent game, despite it being two goals, right? Jorge Villafaña had that really, really silly penalty. We'll talk about that talking down the line. But I thought Victor Vasquez had a really good game. And like you said, I'm on board. Guilty. I was very critical when I heard the rumors that he was going to sign with the LA Galaxy. The LA Galaxy was pursuing him. But Victor Vasquez was all over that midfield. He was active. He was going up and down the pitch. He was on the wings. He was everywhere. He created chances, made some great passes. His passing accuracy was in the 90 percentile, right? He had 50 accurate passes, 91 pass success rate. He had plenty of touches. I believe he was the midfielder with the most touches. He won a couple duels. He blocked a shot. He was just phenomenal. I would really love to see his heat map, because he was just out there. He was directing traffic. Basically everything you would want from a midfielder was there, and his leadership was showing. I don't know. I can't say many more good things about Victor Vasquez than I've already said just now, but I'm very happy with what I've seen so far, and he's definitely a starter. He's made that position his. What do you think about Victor?
I completely agree with you. I think he's exactly what you want in midfielder. I think even when we were passing laterally, he was looking for spaces. I think it's just understanding of the game is just a lot higher. I think that starting position's his. I think he can teach a lot to our other younger midfielders about how to play the game, how to be a good professional. I think even when you did your interview with him, he was as hard as I don't know as hard as, but maybe as skeptical as you were about Victor Vasquez, as some other people were. He was not unaware of that, right? He knew he was coming in with red flags, and he handled it like a professional. He answered the questions, and he inevitably like gave way to what his mentality was going to be, and that's shown through his play on the field. So I've been super impressed by him. We'll see how his legs hold up over the course of the season. Father Time is not something you can beat, and we're going to have to find someone else to sub in for him. But
Zlatan would disagree.
Well,
Zlatan would disagree.
I'm not going to take on Zlatan. So, but
that's a different breed, man. That guy is. I'm convinced he's a Swedish government experiment gone wrong or gone right. I guess you'd say, but he's not human.
But who my sneaky like man of the match was, if it's not for Chicha, it's actually Fisher. I just thought, I know. I know. I've read some comments online. Some people loved him, some people didn't. But you know what, though? I mean, especially in the first half, this guy was getting attacked nonstop by Pizarro and by the other winger. And he just handled it like a champ. I mean, this is a guy who didn't play all the way through the preseason, had limited minutes, comes in and just like is a brick wall to his side. I just off the top of my head, I want to say he blocked at least 4 crosses. Pizarro's on a breakaway. He goes shoulder to shoulder with him, doesn't collect the penalty, takes it right off of him. There's a cross that comes in that one of the few Bond mistakes make. He misplays it, goes across. Where's there Fisher to block the back post, right? Doing all the right things. And then even on that third goal, the one that deflects when he tries to go near post to Chicha, that's something that he creates coming up the sideline. You know, he just has such a strong understanding of the game. He's reading it well. He was super composed, even early on when the team seemed like it was a bit out of sorts and it didn't really know how it wanted to progress from passing out the back to getting it to the offensive end. You know, he was by far the most composed going forward. I was just super duper impressed by him.
I agree. And the thing here, Matt, is that he's not even a starter.
He's not.
He's not a starter. He's the backup to Julian Araujo. And it's very, very, very reassuring to see that from a backup player, that they can actually step up and play starting caliber soccer, right? And I agree with you. I was impressed with the Neil Fisher. I really was. Yeah.
And maybe I'll get roasted for this later, but you know,
you'll get roasted anyway.
I would get roasted regardless. But you know, if I was Araujo, like I would watch my back a little bit with Fisher. I really think he's that good. I think you know, Araujo's very, very talented. He's a great athlete. He's very aggressive. He takes people on. He's not afraid of the big moment. But we also have seen him get in trouble, right? Like we've seen him get red cards. We've seen him get yellows.
Yeah.
We've seen him get exposed when he played with the national team against Mexico. He got humbled a little bit there. There were times in the preseason where his touches were off, his passes were off. And, you know, the thing about Araujo being so young is like, you know, everyone's hyped and blessed him as like, okay, you're the man. You're the one that's going to go to Europe, right? The LA Times has done their stories on him. The community has said, you're the next big star. And the question is like, what's he going to do with it, right? Like that's happened to Efra, same thing, same storylines, ESPN, LA Times, the community. And ultimately, and granted, you know, the book's not written on Efra, but he folded initially, right? The pressure was just a little bit too much for him. Right. We're going to have to see what happens with Araujo. Is he going to fold all the same way? Is he never going to progress from where he is now? But I think the good news is that, you know, when you have a person like Fisher, right, who's a potential starter in back of you, I think that's a more realistic environment for him to go to Europe and have to compete week in, week out for his job. And I think ultimately it'll make him better. But it's just great that we have a backup starter on the right side.
I think that I would kind of disagree with you on the fact that Julian has to watch his back for Neil Fisher, because I think the LA Galaxy, their main investment is Julian Araujo, and they want to get him as many minutes as possible this season because they know that chances are by next season there's going to be a lot of teams knocking on that door asking for him, right? So they're trying to showcase him this season, I believe. But you're right. O'Neal Fisher, I can see him playing a lot of minutes this season because, like you said, Julian Araujo, you know, his tempers flare a little bit sometimes. He maybe makes stupid decision this season, gets himself suspended, gets a red card, or just you know has national team duty because that's still a reality, right? I think O'Neal Fisher will be playing significant minutes this season, and it's very reassuring, like I said, to have him back there because he played a good game. I agree. But let's now move on to the bad. Let's talk about bad, right? Because we covered some of the good stuff. Unfortunately, there was some bad things about this game. Matt, I'll let you take lead on this. What did you see in this game that you thought was bad?
I think bad. There wasn't outside the first half. Like the first half was bad, right? I think for me, like bad first half, but more centrally, I guess the midfield. I think in terms of my bad, it was the midfield in the first half. We had a lot of senseless dispossessions. You know, I think Saldana got himself taken like two or three times in bad positions within the first 56 minutes. Jonah twice, Vasquez even once, and I think that will fix itself over time, as chemistry progresses, maybe as time progresses. But it was bad. It was a lot of passing sideways. It was lots of passing backwards. And I was even watching the game with my family, and we were absorbing pressure. I said, like, you know what? We're going to get scored on in the 45th. Like, there's just no other way. This is the total Galaxy thing to do. And a lot of that had to do with the midfield, not only because it wasn't applying pressure, because it wasn't passing progressively, and it wasn't being direct and offensive enough, but also because until Harvey came in, the entire midfield, there was no defense there. There was no takeaways, right? Like, as opposed to like attacking their midfielders like the way Harvey would, where he would take on Pizarro and just foul him, where we would try to intercept the ball on counter. Like, instead, once they got the ball, it's like, oh, okay, so now it's our turn to defend. I think that was very discouraging. But obviously, that's something we fixed in the second half. But I think the bad was the midfield in the first half. It was, and I understand it was. I think if we had put Leggett in the middle, we would have had a better overall game. But that's just how it goes. We were limited by roster space.
Sure.
But yeah, the midfield for sure, just bad, not good at all.
I've always been an advocate for Leggett on the wing, because his best season as an LA Galaxy player was his first season with the LA Galaxy. I think he had 7 goals, something like 5 assists or something like that, and that came from him playing at the left wing position. He's a very good midfielder. But I do see what you're saying about the midfield. I definitely do see what you're saying about the midfield. And that's my ugly take, right? So if we move on now to the ugly, you have to remember this, right? This Inter Miami team was an absolute dumpster fire of a team last season. Their defense was terrible. Right, I think they let in the most goals in MLS, or I think they were pretty close to the LA Galaxy. They were just horrible. They were a horrible team last season, and this year they didn't play a preseason. They didn't play any teams in preseason, so this was a team that was bad last year. They're just starting to kind of get their footing, but they played no preseason games, so they were rusty. You don't have that match fitness, right? So keeping that in mind, aside from the midfield, being not very creative, right? I'm still worried about the offense. And I know we scored 3 goals today, right? But I feel like the offense still needs that it needs that sharpness. A lot of the goals some of the goals we scored today were you can chop some of that up to a little bit of luck, I just think we need to clean it up a little bit more. I think that was the ugly part that was most evident in that first half when we had 1 shot on goal, and Inter Miami, if you look at the stats, and I have the stats right here, that Inter Miami game with LA, if you look at the stats, Inter Miami, we had the most possession, right? We had 66% of possession, and Inter Miami had 34%. But if you look at the shots, Inter Miami had 19 shots, 8 of which were on target, right? The LA Galaxy had 6 total shots, only 1 in the first half. So to me, that just screams, listen, this offense really isn't creating many chances. They're not creating enough chances for these shots. So to me, that's just part of the ugly. I think that we can definitely work a lot more on that offense, and I think that part of that is going to be resolved when we get Kevin Cabral in the lineup, right? Because he's our big ticket signing this offseason, and I do think that he's going to put in some work and be a bit of a game changer, because we need the youth, right?
Yeah.
So that was just my ugly take, to be honest. Not a lot, mostly in the first half, but just overall, I think offense needs to be sharper, needs to be cleaner. So
yeah, and then for my ugly, I'll go with Grandsir. I just don't think he had a good game at all. I thought he was he was a bit of a albatross out there on the
Mhm.
wing. And like I said, it's not saying he can't be better. It's his first game. He hasn't played a lot. I mean, he had gone a long time, even with Monaco, like not playing or on
Mhm.
loan. Um, but I think just today he was a bit of an albatross. You know, we put the ball to him, trying to gave him opportunities to create, and it was a lot of flash in the pan, but not a lot of substance. I think there were times where he took for granted that a defender was behind him. He got dispossessed. He wasn't really on the same page with his midfielders. You know, I was
Yeah.
hoping he would maybe take someone on a little bit better, maybe make some runs. He didn't. I just think he overall had a really bad game. I would say out of everyone on the team, I think he had the worst game.
So
Um,
out of 12 duels that Samuel Grancier was in, he won 4 duels and he lost 8. So it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with him. I feel like he has the skill, he has the talent, has the potential. He's just not match fit yet, and it's evident. He's trying to play like he's match fit, but he's just not there yet, right? The legs aren't there yet. The stamina's not there yet. The sharpness is not there yet. So he was the midfielder that was dispossessed the most. He was dispossessed 4 times. He lost the ball. That's too many times, right? 1 time is too many. So 4 is ridiculous. And the fact that he lost 8 of his 12 duels is just, it doesn't look well. It wasn't a good look for him. But aside from that, there were those moments of brilliance where you can see that he is a class player, and it's there. It just has to be polished a little bit. So, but I do agree, Samuel Grancier. He's one of these players that we got in the offseason that was kind of like we're resting a lot of hope on Samuel, right, to show up and be that big player.
yeah,
So hopefully we'll see a little bit more as he cleans up his game, he sharpens up a little bit and gains that match fitness. Hopefully we'll see it on Sunday against the Red Bulls, right?
yeah. Well, we
But
gave him a 5-year contract, so God help him. And you know, a lot. And that's the thing. That's the thing. I think for me, it's always been about like when I'm hard on players, I'm hard on players that we have invested a lot in, right? Whether it's
yeah,
salary, whether it's length of contract, whether it's marketing, because when you invest more in a person, you expect more. It's, you know, this is their job, just like we have our job, right? Whatever management position we're in or how much money we collect on our salary, like we have to answer for it. You know,
yeah,
when you get a raise, you have to answer for it in production.
true.
And it's no different with soccer players. You know, I think with Grancier and with Cabral and with a couple of other players, but specifically those two, like no one from the Galaxy knew these guys before we got signed.
Right.
So, you know, not that their first introduction is going to always be a home run. Not everyone's going to be Zlan in, you know, the El Trafico, but you know, you do have to take notice, right? Okay, he's
Right.
hit. He sees where his bar is at. He kind of gets an idea where the league's at. Now we have to kind of go from there. Like I said, I'm going to keep an open mind. It's too early to call anyone a bust at this point, but
Right.
I'm not going to ignore it either that he
Right.
did not have a good game.
And it is good to point it out. I mean, if you compare him to, let's say, another player that we acquired this offseason, Victor Vasquez, right?
Hmm.
Victor Vasquez hasn't played much at all in the last couple of years, and he's 34. He's
Exactly.
literally a decade
Hmm.
older than Samuel Grancier, and yet he came into preseason looking sharp,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
today he looked sharp. There were moments here and there, right? Obviously,
Hmm.
34, a little bit of rust from not playing such a long time, but he was there and he was active. So, Samuel has kind of had this reputation in the past where he's kind of a party boy that, maybe doesn't take things too serious. So hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully he's putting in the work during training. He's putting in the effort and he's keeping focused, because that's the important thing, right? Staying focused and having that motivation and the drive to do it. So let's just keep our fingers crossed, man, and pray to whatever deity the fans pray to. If it's you pray to Cosmo, feel free. But we could just pray that these guys will not be busts, because we've had way too many of those in the last couple of years, and it's painful. As Galaxy fans, it really pains us, because I can say this personally. I don't know, Matt, if you're the same, or if any other fans out there, any listeners have the same feeling. But when the Galaxy signs a new player, I feel emotionally invested in this player, like right from the start, right? Like and it sucks when those players don't live up to it, and it almost breaks your heart a little bit, right? So Samuel, if you're listening to this, brother, please don't break my heart. I really want you to succeed. And I think he will. I think he will, Matt. I think he will. So we'll give him
Yeah.
the benefit of the doubt for now. He had a bit of a rough game. But that's that. Listen, we covered a lot of the highlights. We spoke about some of the good moments, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Thankfully, we were coming home with 3 points, man. That man, the rest of my week is done. I'm made. That's it. I'm happy for the rest of the week. 3 points in the bag. We come back to LA. Our home opener is on Sunday. That's April 25th against the New York Red Bulls. And Matt, we have to talk about this, right? Because it's going to be big. There's going to be fans in the stands, which we went all of last year without fans in the stands. People will be at Victoria Block this year, which blows my mind. Um, we talked about the highlights. We talked about this game. Let's talk about next week's game, which will be the home opener. And like we said, the New York Red Bulls. That's 2:30 p.m. April 25th, Dignity Health Sports Park. The New York Red Bulls are coming off of a home loss. They lost 2-1 versus SKC, and losing at home is kind of big for the Red Bulls, right? What do you think?
The Red Bulls are always a team that are good. The Red Bull organization in general is very well run, right? The Red Bulls have always been competitive. I think, anyone who's followed MLS for any period of time remembers the Red Bulls like just owning the cheese plate like every single year, but never really getting the cup. But we'll see. And the Red Bulls, they just look okay. They don't look. They just look okay. They had grabbed a brief lead over SKC, but ultimately SKC got a penalty. They got a goal, and that was all she wrote. This is a winnable game for us. I just think that maybe we have some adjustments to make. I think, Miami was kind of like served up to us on a silver platter, right? They're not unlike us in that, they have a new coach. They were mired with off-season scandal. And, not all our pieces weren't in place, and they hadn't played a preseason game. So in a lot of ways, this was the most winnable game we could have gotten right off the get-go. The Red Bulls are not like that. The Red Bulls have their players. They have a strong academy. They're going to come out better. But the good news is that, we came out with a win against Miami, and Greg Vanney got to see what his lineup really does against other professionals when they're going full speed, right? I think another man of the match in the Miami game is actually Greg Vanney. His ability to make the substitutions at exactly the right time was perfect. Right. This guy has like a phenomenal feel for the game. Great tactician. He gave Chicha exactly what he wanted. He gave the mid exactly what they wanted. And at the end of the day, he wasn't afraid to sub out like a guy like John Dos Santos when he got tired, right? A star player like that, you think you have to run him full 90. Right. But he knows like, okay, if he's done, he's done. And running him longer is only going to get him hurt. So I think Greg Vanney has a lot to take from Miami. And I think ultimately he's going to make the adjustments. I believe, and I've been putting out there that we're going to win the first 3 games. So
if that's true, we end up actually qualifying for the U.S. Open Cup this season.
I think we will. I think Greg Vanney is a phenomenal coach. I think from what I've seen just in the preseason and then even today, we have the right person at the wheel now. But I think ultimately he has to change the lineup. What I would do is I would probably take Leggett off the wing. It feels like Leggett is his most productive when he's almost like in a position where he can make a late midfield run into the box, right? Or he can play a 1-2 with Vasquez or a 1-2 with Chicha as like almost like a reserved forward. And as the game had progressed, actually in Miami, he went from the wing and he started working himself middle, and that's really where we started taking off. So I think I would bring him back middle, and I would just put a real winger out there, maybe Dunbar,
Kevin Cabral,
or even Zubak. Kevin Cabral if he's available.
Kevin Cabral when he comes back, when he comes into the lineup. So, but I agree. I think that Sunday's game is definitely winnable. The Red Bulls didn't look good at all this weekend in their home opener. They got a new striker, Fabio from Brazil. Was actually playing in Japan for some weird reason, but he didn't really show up. And I think they're placing a lot of money on this guy to be that number 9 that would put goals in the back of the net, kind of like Bradley Wright Phillips used to do for them back in the day. But it wasn't really there. So I think the Red Bulls are going to struggle. I think that the fans are really going to show up big at the Dignity Health Sports Park. I can just feel it. I feel it, man. Fans are just so hungry. At that viewing party, there was maybe 80 people, anywhere from 60 to 80 people, but it felt like there was hundreds of people in there, right? Those fans have been without soccer for such a long time. It's the start of a new era. Fans are just hungry for it. And you could just feel it. It's electric. So even though there's only going to be a couple thousand at the Dignity Health Sports Park this weekend, it's going to sound like 30,000 for sure. So very excited to see that. Really, really excited. Hey, Matt, listen, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. You and we've never technically met, but you and I have been active on Reddit for so many years. So I feel like I practically know you, man. So it's been awesome having you on. It won't be the last time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It was an honor. I'm happy to contribute to anything Galaxy related. Anytime you need me, I'm available, and you're doing a great job. So the Reddit Nation appreciates you.
I love it, man. Listen, this show was born on Reddit, right? And it's kind of surreal because I started just posting these crappy memes, and doing the short post game analysis with the hot takes. And I most of my support comes from Reddit. So listen, this podcast was born on Reddit. It's by Redditors, right? So that's my home. Reddit is my home. That's my home base. That's my community, my primary community. I'm very active on other communities. The Galaxy Family Discord, which is now the largest Galaxy fan Discord online, extremely active. Over 1,000 people on there now, and they're streaming games. So, but Reddit's the place for me, right? And I do appreciate, again, Matt, having you on. This is an open door, right? Any Redditor out there that wants to come on the show, hit me up, talk to me. Let's chat about it. If you have some interesting takes, bring them on the show. But with that said, Matt, and then just remind people one more time, the giveaway is still ongoing. So check out the socials for more details on that. But I think we got through everything. What do you think, Matt?
I think it sounds good. Can't wait. Can't wait to be back at home.
Sounds good. We'll be at the Dignity Health Sports Park on Sunday to get 3 more points at the expense of the New York Red Bulls. But with that said, guys, listeners, I really do truly appreciate the love. I got a chance to meet a lot of you guys today at the viewing party. I interviewed plenty of you. Interview video will be up Monday or Tuesday. Pleasure and an honor. Special shout out to Miss Linda Pickle, who brought a lot of her stuff, a lot of her collections, cards, game day guides from 96 and 97 to show to the fans. It was phenomenal. I'm going to be working on some projects with her in the coming days. But you guys have yourselves a good rest of your week. From me, your host, Chris Maldonado, the Galaxy Guy podcast, for Mr. Matt Granger, Galaxy Fan 89 on Reddit. We want to thank you guys. Have a good week, and we are off.